Hello and welcome to Into Vietnam Weekend. I'm To Anh. In this program, we'll bring you comprehensive news on Vietnam's economy throughout the week, ending September the 4th, and following our major stories. The country targets a GDP growth rate of 6.5% and CPI increase under 10%. The State Bank of Vietnam replaced its two previous circulars number 13 and 19 by circular 22 on specifying credit ratio. And our conversation with Elver, CEO of Siemens Vietnam. But first, let's have a look at figures of the week. A recent report released by the Ministry of Planning and Investment indicated some economic targets of Vietnam for next year. The country targets a GDP growth rate of 5.6% and expects to keep state budget deficit under 5% of GDP and CPI increase under 10%. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Finance forecasts Vietnam's public debt would increase from the current 56.7% to 58.2% of GDP in 2012. The ministry added most of Vietnam's public debt is long-term loans with low interest rates. In the first 8 months of this year, Vietnam has achieved or outperformed 15 out of 22 socio-economic targets.
The latest report from the General Statistics Office of Vietnam showed that total investment capital from the state budget was estimated at 111.1 trillion dong in the first 8 months of this year. The figure represents a year-on-year increase of 8.7% and 58.3% of the year's plan. The centrally managed capital reached 26.9 trillion dong, up 8.1% on year, equaling 64.2% of the year's target. Meanwhile, the locally managed capital also rose by 8.9% from the same period last year to 84.2 trillion dong, marking up 56.7% of the year's plan. About 18.5 trillion dongs from the state budget was spent on investment this month.
Retail sales of goods and services of Vietnam hit 1,224.4 trillion dong in the first 8 months of the year, up 22.2% on year. However, the growth rate fell to 3.9% if the inflation factor is excluded. During the period, trade business rose 22.3% on year to 968.4 trillion dong, equaling 79% of the total value. Retail sales of hotels and restaurants reached 133.6 trillion dong, up 21.4% on year. Revenue from the service and tourism sector totaled 110.2 trillion dong and 12.2 trillion dong respectively, representing a year-on-year increase of 22.7% and 14.8%. Vietnam's total retail sales of goods and services hit 1,561 trillion dong last year. We will now move on to securities news. The Vietnamese stock market closed all days of the week in green. As a result, investor confidence gradually improved and liquidity rose over 50% from the previous week.
VN Index advanced in all trading sessions of the week with an average increase of 5 points per trading sessions. Particularly, the index surged 10.58 points on the last trading day to close the week at 435.29. It rose 30.88 points or 7.63% from last Friday. Trading volumes and value also increased sharply from last week, averaging 45.94 million units and 736 billion dongs per trading sessions. HNX Index experienced a similar uptrend with the VN Index during the trading week. It rose by 6.11 points or 8.82% from last Friday to close the week at 75.36. Trading volumes and value averaged 59.95 million units and 675 billion dongs respectively per trading sessions. The market was full of supported information, which led to a strong rebound of investor sentiment. Investors were optimistic on the rally driven by new regulations on margin trading, low valuations, and improved economic data. Purchasing power was very strong during the week. The State Securities Commissions recently introduced limits for equity margins trading, allowing securities companies to lend investors a maximum 40% of the value of equity purchases. Therefore, about 67.5 trillion dong is expected to be pumped into the market in the near future. Foreign investors were net sellers on both national bourses to restructure their portfolios during the trading week. They net sold 3 million shares valued at $66 billion on Ho Chi Minh Stock Exchange and net offloaded $22 billion worth of 1.3 million shares on the Northern Bourse.
In the next part of the program, we'll take a look at major macroeconomic and investment events during the past week.
The State Bank of Vietnam recently replaced its two previous circulars number 13 and 19 by Circular 22 on specifying allowed credit ratio to local banks. Specifically, the central bank would remove credit ratio of 80% of mobilized capital as specified in its two past circulars. At the same time, it also adjusts risk factors of some debit foreign currency assets when calculating safe ratio of capital. This circular will be effective from the September 1st, and is expected to help local banks lend more than 80% of mobilized capital. For non-banking credit institutions, the rate of 85% will be removed. The removal of credit ratio has messaged to lower interest rates and domestic currency liquidity in the banking system, which is being redundant of capital. The circular is expected to help banks circulate capital more effectively between the primary and interbank markets. The Ministry of Finance on Tuesday said there would be no collection of tax arrears for Honda Vietnam. The decision was supported by Deputy Minister Hoàng Trung Hai's conclusion in dealing with the levying tax of import auto parts. Previously, Honda Vietnam has sent a petition to Deputy Prime Minister Hoàng Trung Hai on $3,340 billion of tax arrears on imported auto parts in the past 5 years. Earlier, the Japanese firm stated that tax levied on their imported auto parts were unreasonable and refused to pay the tax. It added it would reconsider its investment in Vietnam in the future if asked to pay the tax.
The General Statistics Office said Vietnam's Index of Industry Product, or IIP, rose only 4.3% in August. The figure pushed down the growth of this index in the first 8 months to 7.3%, compared to 8.8% in 7 months and 9.7% in the first half. Between January and August, Vietnam experienced a downturn in nearly half of its industrial products. Only 9.6 million tons of crude oil and natural gas were exploited, down 2.3% on year. The vegetable and fruit processing industry declined by 9.8%. Medicine production fell by 2.9%. Rising income costs, lowering consumption, and high inventories were blamed for the downturn during the period.
Samsung Electronics Vietnam, or SEV, announced further investment is planned to make it become a high-tech complex called Samsung Complex. Its total investment is $1.5 billion, lasting from 2015 to 2020. Under the plan, the second mobile phone production line will be officially put into operation this month, bringing the capacity of this company's plants in Vietnam to 100 million products per year in 2012. At present, over 95% of SEV's mobile phone products are being exported to Europe and some Asian countries.
The Vietnam Timber and Forest Association on Wednesday officially rejected a claim made by the Environment Investigation Agency that local wood processing companies illegally bought timber from Laos. The association added that Vietnam legally imported timber from Laos, which was granted export licenses by Laotian authorities. The timber was strictly examined by the local authorities before exporting to Vietnam and was also inspected by Vietnamese officials. Earlier, at the end of July, the UK-based agency held a meeting in Bangkok stating that some Vietnamese firms traded timber with illegal origin from Laos and export the processed products to the European Union and the US.
The State Treasury on Thursday successfully auctioned to around 4,000 billion of 3-year and 5-year government bonds on Hanoi Stock Exchange. Of the sum, there was 1,925 billion dong of 3-year government bonds and the remaining 1,867 billion dong for 5-year government bonds. 3-year and 5-year government bonds' lowest interest rates were traded at 12% per annum and 12.5% for highest interest rates of 3-year bonds. Meanwhile, the highest interest rate of 5-year bonds was 13.5% per annum. However, the winning bid interest rates for 3-year bond was 12.28% and 12.4% per annum for 5-year bonds. Hanoi Stock Exchange said results of auctioning both 3-year and 5-year bonds were issued on September the 6th, and maturity dates were in 2014 and 2016. The Vietnam Joint Stock Bank for Industry and Trade, or Vietinbank, announced to issue $1 billion worth of overseas bond on the international financial market. The bond issued will have the maturity of 5 to 10 years, offered to Asian and European investors, excluding investors in the U.S. Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank AG, and 13 other financial institutions have submitted their bids to advise the bank on its coming bond issue. Vietinbank has sold out 10% stake to the International Finance Corporation and plans to sell another 15% stake to Canada's Bank of Nova Scotia. It expects to double its total capital in the next 10 years to $1.4 billion. At present, Vietinbank is the third largest bank in Vietnam by credit market share. The number of illegal and unskilled foreign laborers in Vietnam has been rising in recent time, posing many challenges to the country. Given that situation, the government has recently issued Decree 46 with the aim of tightening foreign workers' management. The following in-depth report will bring you a comprehensive view about the recent issued decree.
The current foreign workforce in Vietnam comes from over 60 countries and territories. About 58% of foreign workers are from Asia and 28.5% from Europe. By the end of 2010, around 54.4% of foreign laborers in the country were granted work permits. Those at the age of over 30 make up 86%. Undergraduate and postgraduate degree holders account for 48.3%. Skilled workers occupied 34.6%. About 89.9% of foreigners working in Vietnam are male.
Cái hiện tượng người lao động nước ngoài đến Việt Nam làm việc ngày một gia tăng hiện nay, theo tôi nó là một cái quá trình tất yếu của một cái nền kinh tế thị trường của chúng ta hiện nay. Các cái người lao động nước ngoài đến Việt Nam thì đã bổ sung được một cái nguồn nhân lực chất lượng cao mà trong nước thực tế là chưa đáp ứng được hết.
Under Decree 34 released on the 25th of March 2008, Vietnam only granted work permits for managers, CEOs or experts in charge of managing the enterprises with representative offices in Vietnam. However, the number of unlicensed foreign workers with tourist visa has been increasing in recent years. In this context, Decree 46 taking effect since August the 1st outlines new regulations to monitor foreign workers in the country.
Tôi thấy rằng là cái nghị định số 46 này sửa đổi bổ sung một số điểm, một số điều của nghị định số 34 năm 2008. Thì thực ra cái nghị định 46 này là nhằm siết chặt quản lý lao động nước ngoài tại Việt Nam, và siết chặt quản lý đây là siết chặt những đối tượng, những lao động mà có tay nghề thấp, tức là lao động phổ thông.
Decree 46 has made more stringent regulations for unskilled and low-skilled workers. On the other hand, it creates favorable conditions to attract highly qualified foreign laborers. It also provides more specific and flexible regulations on demonstrating the competence of the workforce.
Chúng ta có quy định rất rõ trong cái hồ sơ xin cấp phép lao động. Đó là phải chứng minh được con người đó, cái người lao động đó là người có trình độ, có chất xám, rồi có cái kinh nghiệm hoạt động trong cái lĩnh vực của họ một thời gian nhất định, chẳng hạn là 5 năm. Tuy nhiên, đối với cái trường hợp này thì chúng ta lại phụ thuộc hoàn toàn vào những cái xác nhận của nước bạn đối với các cái văn bằng chứng chỉ này.
Decree 46 then allows the use of certain types of documents, such as certificate of recognition, work permit, or employment contract, to demonstrate the capacity of foreign workers. The decree also states that if unlicensed workers do not apply for work permit, they will be forced to leave the country within 6 months. At the same time, foreign enterprises and organizations have to report their recruitment, use and management of foreign workers to Vietnamese authorized agencies. Decree 46 also clarifies the administrative procedures for granting work permits and license renewal. Particularly, the country can only grant immigration visa for foreigners having work permits. In general, the arrival of Decree 46 and many new regulations is believed to have Vietnam better control and regulate foreign workforce and ensure the benefits of local workers.
And following is some foreign trade news.
The Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development said Vietnam shipped 15,000 tons of pepper abroad in August, earning $91 million. In total, Vietnam exported 98,000 tons of pepper, worth a total of $545 million between January and August, up only 6.5% in volume but 79% in value on year. The significant increase in export revenue was attributed to consecutive surging prices of pepper in the world market. Pepper export prices rose 71% on year, hitting an average of $5,600 per ton. The Vietnam Pepper Association said most pepper farmers did not have a sufficient supply despite rocketing prices, because they would only sell the remaining pepper to traders when pepper price reached $100 million per ton. Vietnam is the world's leading pepper exporter, expecting to export an addition of 20,000 tons of pepper in 2011. The General Statistics Office said Vietnam's car import volume reached 42,000 units in the first 8 months of this year, valued at $782 million, up 30% in volume and 32% in value on year. In August alone, the total number of imported cars reached 4,000 units, worth a total of $78 million. The imported car volume in August was the same as the previous month, bringing the total car import of the country reached the lowest value in 18 months. This was attributed to the Ministry of Industry and Trade's direction in limiting car import. It is predicted that car import of the country would be likely to fall in the coming months.
Vietnam's export revenue from agroforestry and fishery sector hit $16.4 billion between January and August, up 34.2% on year. Amongst the total revenue, exports of agricultural products surged 44% from the same period last year to $9.3 billion. Besides, the country also earned $2.4 billion from exports of wood and wooden products, up 13.5% on year. Meanwhile, seafood export brought Vietnam $3.7 billion, representing a year-on-year increase of 24.4%. The sector targets an export revenue of $23 billion this year, surpassing the record of $19.2 billion last year.
The General Statistics Office said in the first 8 months of this year, Vietnam exported over 1.4 million tons of crude oil, earning more than $1.3 billion, up 25% in volume, but down 74.6% in value from the same period last year. During the same period, the country imported at least 7.5 million tons of petroleum, estimated at around $6.8 million. The figures represented a year-on-year increase of 5.7% in volume and 55% in value. As a result, Vietnam suffered a trade deficit on petroleum of $5.55 billion in the first 8 months of this year, and up to $111 million in August alone.
In the business talk this week, Viet TV reporter has a conversation with Erdal Elver, CEO of Siemens Vietnam. He will bring us more insight into some problems that big cities of Vietnam are facing due to growing population. Besides, he will tell us about opportunities for foreign investors in infrastructure projects here.
Thank you very much for joining our program today. As you may know, Siemens has been get involved in a lot of projects in Vietnam, and what sectors Siemens most interested in and account for the highest percentage of Siemens business in Vietnam, and why?
As a world leader in total solutions in different key areas like energy, infrastructure, industry, and healthcare, Siemens is focusing equally in all those areas. In Vietnam, we have contributed in all those areas to the economic development of Vietnam, especially in the area of energy. Now, if you look into Vietnam, as a developing country and ambitious developing country, what we need first? You need energy to set up the infrastructure for the further development to become an industrialized nation by 2020. And therefore, we have done most in the area of energy.
Big cities of Vietnam are in urgent need of energy. So besides energy, what the current urgent need of big cities of Vietnam, and what Siemens is doing to have big cities of Vietnam cope with their problems?
Now, considering the growth potential of Vietnam, also in terms of population, those cities will continue growing. Today in Ho Chi Minh City we have above 8 million people, in Hanoi above 6 million when I'm correct, and this growth, population growth, will bring a lot of challenges to the cities. One of the major challenges will be the transportation of the people. And that is an area where we are also working since long in Ho Chi Minh City. We have done a project together with the authorities in Ho Chi Minh City, GISAT, Siemens, and ITS Consulting, a project called Ho Chi Minh City 21. Means what is the vision of Ho Chi Minh City in the 21st century and how Ho Chi Minh City can develop and become a center in the 21st century. So in that project we have analyzed together with those parties, said what are the priorities of a city for achieving a certain level of standards, and then define strategic advices to the authorities saying, okay, which areas needs to be considered, which areas needs to be further elaborated, and which actions needs to be defined to become a metropolis of the 21st century. So this is a concrete example where we have worked together with the city authorities and worked out strategic advices to the city authorities which they can consider in their future planning to make Ho Chi Minh City a modern city in the 21st century.
What other solutions can you suggest to have Ho Chi Minh City develop a comprehensive transportation plan?
You have to have an overall plan for the transportation need, which considers, of course, mass transit systems, which considers transportation between the key areas of the city, commuters, and also traffic control systems. And we as Siemens have a broad portfolio, what we call complete mobility, which considers all those areas. And this was also part of this initiative for Ho Chi Minh City 21, where we have shown what can be done to cope with the challenges of transportation in future. And as mentioned, those areas are in further elaboration, and we hope that we will create further actions to implement to cope with the challenges of transportation in future.
How do you see the potential of investment in transportation projects in Vietnam? I mean from the perspective of foreign investors.
There are different areas, and we also see and appreciate the initiatives of the government to push the PPP initiatives, the public-private partnerships. And that are areas where foreign investors come in and invest into certain areas in the city, like in the transportation systems, in different areas of the city, which would of course help also cities to get funding and financing into different areas and make the implementation of certain projects possible. So I believe that we will have in future further investments considering the PPP initiative also from foreign companies, which will help cities, of course, to cope with the problems which are coming, of course, with the population growth and urbanization.
From your point of view, how do you evaluate the effectiveness of PPP projects in infrastructure in Vietnam?
We are in an initial phase of, let's say, of this program. I think the rules and regulations have been defined, and I know that the government, especially MPI, is very much supporting this initiative. And we have seen in other areas of the world projects on the transportation area, which are quite effective. And I also believe that they will also be effective here in Vietnam and will bring investors to participate in the infrastructure development of cities and make them more livable.
Besides your core businesses in Vietnam, like infrastructure, energy, or healthcare, what areas will Siemens target to expand in Vietnam and why?
Our focus will remain on those key areas, clearly. And we will continue our engagement in those areas, energy, infrastructure, industry, healthcare. And we will also continue to expand our presence, let's say, in different dimensions. The one dimension, you may know, we have local manufacturing of high-tech low power distribution systems. We will keep and expand this operation. We will bring new product lines in future and expand this operation. That is the one area. Another area, what we're already doing, but will also increase, that we further expand our local presence for engineering solutions. We have already a team working with our customers to provide solutions to specific areas, in industry and energy. This area we will keep and also further develop, and further develop the local competencies in future to be able to respond fast to the needs of the customers. We will further expand our presence in project management, engineering, service, and of course implementation. So that are areas where we will continue our activities and expand our operations. We consider Vietnam as one of the key markets in that region. We see a lot of potential, but also a lot of needs, which Vietnam will need to cope with the challenges of a growing economy. And I believe our portfolio provides a lot of solutions to those areas, and we are happy to be here and further contribute to the development of Vietnam.
Thank you very much for your time with us today, and good luck with your investment and your upcoming investment in Vietnam.
Thank you very much.
The conversation has concluded our program this week. Thank you for watching. For comments and feedback, send us an email at intovietnam@vietv.vn or call us at 0422208288 or 0983566844. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tune in for our daily evening news.